Hello, dear listener and watcher. My name is Arthur Javet. I will be your host through this journey of this blockchain lecture course. That's a very intriguing space full of decentralization, of new technology, finance, security, economics, game theory, and so many fields are clashing in this space. It's a space full of innovation. There are many people joining and leaving the space on a regular pace, and it's been really a ride the last 10 years of blockchain that existed. So I welcome you on this rabbit hole down this path, and I hope you enjoy it. We will start with a simple introduction and the high-level overview of what blockchain is. So let's go back a bit in history. So in 2040, before Christ, there was this is kind of, we could think of the cornerstone where centralized banking started. So you have this stone here, and it's really a balance sheet. So you can see here what's ingrained on these different stones is the names and the accounts balances of individuals. So in that sense, it's really a record of who owns how much money, and this is what we could call the starting or the inauguration of centralized banking in Mesopotamia. Well, obviously much time has passed since then, and we know with the advent of banks, professional banks like BNP Paribas, Bank of America, HSBC, this has been institutionalized, and it's really a very professional activity. In 1936, however, with the invention of the Turing machine by Alan Turing, banking and finance experienced quite a revolution. There are new means for customers to pay and purchase everyday groceries and items with, for example, credit cards that at the same time perform financial services such as lending. And we could call the area of privacy-preserving banking with the advent of electronic cash or e-cash by David Chaum in 83, which is kind of a very intriguing and it's an interesting idea to try to hide your balance and transactions from a central entity, while I believe a very revolutionary area that came about is this decentralized banking, where you no longer entrust your funds to a custodian like a bank that hold your assets, but you're rather capable of holding the assets yourself if you wish to do so. And this really started with Bitcoin in 2008, where a pseudonym named Satoshi Nakamoto presented a paper called Bitcoin. And a few months after, in the beginning of January 2009, he released the source code for that, and which started to operate, and people started to mine blocks. So it's actually, since then, it's been live. It got never shut down. It certainly experienced congestion, but it worked flawlessly since then. Well, it depends on what you call flawlessly, but there's a very vibrant developer community and economics community that has built around this, and many other innovations appeared, such as Ethereum, Zcash, and many other DeFi nowadays, many other different constructs and blockchains arise. So this is you can kind of think this is the history of blockchain, or of payments in general, of electronic transfer of logic, of financial logic. So how can we move from a centralized to decentralized payment system? Well, here, if Bob wants to perform a payment to Alice and wants to go through a bank, it's pretty straightforward. He has to perform this payment through the central hub. But if we want to remove this centralized entity, then we need to replace it kind of with a cloud of miners that create a blockchain, that append data to the blockchain, specifically transactions, financial transactions to the blockchain. We need developers that maintain the blockchain infrastructure is very important, and we need a peer-to-peer network which dissipates this information among peers in the blockchain network. So there are many questions, obviously, that arise when we think of such systems. Many of them I have been trying to work on the last years of my life, and there still are many of them are not fully answered, or it's hard to give proper clean answers. So how to perform secure decentralized payments? So how can we avoid that an adversary can steal funds from other participants? Or how to exchange privacy preserving payments, right? How can we make sure to send a coin from Alice to Bob here, or from Bob to Alice, without a third party like Eve being able to observe what's happening on chain? How to make decentralized systems efficient? Typically, if you add privacy, the system suffers in terms of performance. If you decrease latency, often the security gets compromised, or weaker at least, compared to a slower system. So the inherent trade-offs, and it's a very fascinating field with so many different characters and different backgrounds in being involved in this matter. So this course outline, I really want to touch on many topics. We'll be looking at a fairly basic introduction in the first two lectures. So we'll be covering what transactions are, what addresses are, blockchain addresses are. We'll be covering mining, how the blockchain looks like, what are forks of the blockchain. We'll be looking in lecture 3 on more in depth into Ethereum and what are smart contracts and smart contract programming. We'll be looking at consensus protocols and peer-to-peer, a deep dive into security. How can we quantify security of a blockchain? How can we quantitatively compare different blockchains? How can we scale? So what are the different avenues to grow in terms of scale? And how can we perform privacy preserving transactions? Or what are the privacy solutions on blockchains?